So this is what is the legendary Pulse for Music in Cambridge Heath Road. Literally in my head, this here would be the counter, and on any given day of the week, especially on a Saturday, this is, I'm talking late 89, early 1990, so it was one deck. That end was all like the top 40 pop music album buyers. This end was everyone who was coming in to get all the latest acid house imports, European imports, bleeps and bass, rave. And it was me, Mervyn, who was on Centreforce, Eamon, who went on to make Liquid Sweet Harmony. Now I'll just clock the door. So this place would be heaving on a Saturday afternoon with people who heard tunes played on Sunrise, Centreforce coming in asking for us. Because in this area, so many DJs who was on Centreforce, Sunrise, Labyrinth, Genesis, all live round here within a mile radius. This here, this was a stock room out the back, and there was just, wait it right, come with me. One day the stock room went on fire, caught on fire, right? There's a toilet here, isn't there? There's a toilet here. There's a fucking toilet here, right? This is a true story. One Saturday afternoon, the stock room got on fire out the back, and there's mechanics out the back, right? And it caught on fire. And there's all these ravers and everything out here off their face buying records. Fires coming through, and our Governor Dave, who gave me Eamon Liquid, all of us our break, he's come running. It's a fucking fire, it's a fucking fire. Right, but come here. So there was tens of thousands of records out the back here, tens of thousands of records out the front, because Pulse for Music not only was a hub for Centreforce, Sunrise, Genesis, Labyrinth, all the DJs, it was also the oldest record shop in British history, up to the point that it closed in the late 90s. Now, where these two are standing, here in this man's stock cupboard, there is a huge basement that goes over and under the road, and underneath here was hundreds of thousands of records that Pulse for Music's dad, his name was Paul, it was Dave who then owned the shop from his dad, all of the records from the 50s, 60s, 70s were all kept underneath.
And how many thousand was it there?
Oh, this shop had hundreds of thousands. Hundreds and hundreds of thousands.
So we're literally standing where all of the DJs would have got their music from here, literally there.
The deck was here, and look, I specific, like Mervyn who worked in here was on Centreforce. I remember Hermit and Bags.
Did that ever come in here? And
right, your dad, right? Your dad was a mythical name in this area. Virtually every other person who's come in here knew Andy Swallow, had a story of Andy Swallow, and I remember, right, Dave, and we need to find out from your dad if he can confirm this. Dave had 11210 that he was selling, and the shop myth was your dad come in, knew that there was a deck, needed a deck for the radio. Dave, I'll have the deck, mate, I'll come back and pay you. Dave was an older generation than Andy and all, Joe Brick, who lived across the road. He was like 20 years older. Yeah. The story is your dad never come back.
Listen, I haven't even got to ring Dad to confirm or deny that. That's definitely true. Right. If he didn't pay, it's definitely true.
But who was going to say to Andy Swallow, hey mate, you know that deck you took last week? Could we have the money?
Oh,
but like this, where you had, here would be all the flyers, Labyrinth, Genesis, Echoes is just up the road. So you'd have all the flyers when Rain Dogs first started, late 80s.
And Dan, what would you say, like the tune, if like walking back in here today, it's been how many years since you've been in here?
Since the 90s.
What would be, when you walk through the door today, what one tune brings you back to Pulse Music and
first time I walked in it?
Yeah, what tune takes you back to that day?
Right, the very first time that I walked in here before I got my job in here, was coming, like me and my dad, we'd go all over London robbing phone boxes. Sorry mum, I know you don't like hearing that, but we'd go around robbing phone boxes, and you had a machine that went on, opened up the phone box, the money, and the money would come out. And me and my dad were obsessed with records, and we'd had been
forever and a day, right?
Before Acid and before House. So we've driven past here, and my dad's like, there's a record shop there. But come on, let's go in. So we've got all our 50p's, we got all our money for the phone boxes, our 10p's and all that.
How much were the records back then, man?
A British 12 was $2.99, an import 12-inch was $4.99, an import album was $9.99, a British album was $5.99. But we walked in here and there was all these lists of all the big 89, 88 summer warehouse anthems. There was all these lists, and the very first record that I brought from in here was Rave and Maze, Together Forever. That was the first record I brought from in here. Within 6 weeks, me and my dad had been coming in and out. My dad had made a rapport with Dave also,
and all the phone boxes had run out of their money.
The phone boxes had run out of money. I managed to get a Saturday job in here, in which Dave gave me £12 a day. Bear in mind, me and my dad would make about £150 a day. What person in their right mind would take a drop? But I was 14 and I wanted to be surrounded by records, right?
And that really led you on your path of where you got to today, right?
On the absolute path. And when I started working in here, the record that will forever remind me of this era, this area, Centreforce, don't ask me why, but Jeep Style, a record by Jeep Style called If There's a Cure for This. And it was the very first time in my life and experience as a DJ, and I was 14 behind this counter
there.
Import coming in that day, me hearing it from the distributor, Centreforce DJs, Sunrise DJs, Labyrinth DJs coming in, buying their records for their radio shows and their gigs in the warehouses and the clubs. And that was the very first record I remember hearing from a distributor, standing behind this counter and then going to all the DJs, this is the big one this weekend, mate, this is the big one.
Did you give them a nod, Dan? Did you give them this is a good
nod? There's the nod. As loud as the music could go, you'd have people dance differently. They'd be in front of the counter. And yeah,
coming back here, coming back to East London, coming back to where like a lot of us stay and think and feel like the rave scene was really born, and a lot of the artists and a lot of the people that come from the area have all gone on to make it well now, and gone on to bigger and better things. What do you think for the area now, for the new DJs that are coming through? Do you think that we're going to get that new generation of talent from the area?
Right, like many people my age, my family are from North London but spent a lot of time in this area because my uncle had a car locked down.
Yeah, we was talking about it. Yeah.
Even though Joe Labyrinth lived across the road, he was from Tottenham at one point and went to school with my uncles and stuff. And I'm not as, when I had a lot of time in this area, one, working in a record shop, two, I had a 5-year residency at Labyrinth.
Which was literally,
Then, when I was in my teens, I spent from the age of 14 to 20 in the hub of Bethnal Green, Hackney, Dalston, this whole area. Now, I'm going to just reel off names. So, of course, Centreforce, all the Centreforce DJs come through here. But then, like, Shut Up and Dance would be at this counter bringing in their white labels to sell behind the shop. Shut Up and Dance changed the way Rave
game, 100%.
They were from Hackney,
and they literally come and stood here and give you that record across this counter.
DJ Hype, when he first started making music, he'd come around with the Scientist white labels. Incidentally, Scientist went to the same school as me, and Hype would come in here, and Hype, even though Hype was on Fancy FM at that time, Hype, there's the odd tape out there with Hype on Centreforce.
I've actually got one of the tapes. We're going to be rerunning it on a couple of the cover shows in the next couple of months.
And he mixes up, he scratches and mixes up.
Yeah, it's
the vocal of Tears.
Wicked. Yeah, wicked.
I tell you, where this shop as well had an extensive back catalogue of music from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, there was like the big Balearic alternate scene as well, where like Colt Boys, Whole of the Moon, those kind of records were really big with Tony Wilson, who was from round this way as well,
legend of the game.
And also this shop on a number of occasions, whether it was Oakenfold, Tony Wilson would come in this shop and dig for rare, obscure, alternate records to play at their alternate gigs that were like, this is the mad thing of that time. People say it was all one thing.
Yeah, it was.
And it was, but it wasn't, because you did have the East End warehouse parties and the more underground
stuff like Tony Wilsonator and people like that did. And
then you had these big, massive field raves and events that were more commercial compared to what was going on in East London. But then you had like the Oakenfolds, Tony Wilson, Danny Rampling, who were on a completely different tip with their alternate flavours. And what the one common denominator that kept them all so close at that period of time was one a year, and all of those scenes all played house music. Some would go off and play more rockier, Balearic stuff. Others would be far more underground bass line, bleeps and bass, but there was always a connection of house.
Like and that was like the running theme for all of it, even though it had different kind of styles
and different energies. And the other thing as well, to your question, do I think this area will create the same? Will this area create Kenny Ken,
Randall, any of those
Randall, Billy Daniel Bunter, Sharp and Dance, Ragga Twins, Cool FM, Sunrise? Will it create that again? I'm too old to know like what 18 to 21 year olds are doing, or 15 to 25 year olds like we were doing when then. But however, then London rave culture was much more lawless. London was a different place. You can't even get one of those bikes now and run off with it.
We tried to earlier
without it bleeding. No, I get that. You certainly wouldn't be able to go around and rob phone boxes. You certainly wouldn't be able to break into warehouses the way people did. There's
nick records nick an actual deck out of a record shop.
Some people could probably still do that. But I don't know. But I do hear lots of cutting edge music
still coming through
that excites me from people half my age. But 35 years ago is a long time ago, and London was far more grittier, lawless.
Because we were talking about this on the way when we was driving here, and we were saying about how back then you would walk through London and you wouldn't see anybody on the streets. You know what I mean? The streets weren't busy like they are today, and
it was nothing. He was nothing like this. And anyone who's like, I have pride that I am younger than all my DJ mates who I DJ with. Sorry, Rat Pack, Slip Rat. I am 10 years older than most, younger than most of them, right? But that anyone who was in on that 88, 89, 90 scene, whether it was through listening to pirate radio, going to raves, coming into record shops, then you knew if someone was a raver. When you was walking down the road, if you walked through Bethnal Green, Wood Green, Brick Lane, people were walking along, you could just tell a raver from his kickers, his Benetton top, he'd like the curtains, like just you could just tell. Well, this is pre-glow sticks, but people would give you that nod, right?
Like the ravers nod.
And I don't know whether there's tens of thousands of people out there walking around Brick Lane knowing whether someone's gone to a rave or.
You wouldn't know. Most of them, I get that, and I just think that for the reason I asked you that question is obviously we're returning to London, returning to East London, back where it all started for Centreforce with Summer in the City, and I feel like the major part of us talking to all the DJs and taking a trip down memory lane, if you like, walking around places that mean a lot to all of us, is that we've that Centreforce is East London's finest for a reason, and for me I want to keep that grittiness, that edge to Centreforce going forward. And I think by bringing the parties back to East London and back to where we started, it shows that no matter how far we take the brand, and when we take it around the world, we always go back to our roots. And I think that's the real thing around doing the party in the halls and bringing it back to London. You know, like a lot of people now don't like to go raves in London. They like to go to a field in Chelmsford or in Hertfordshire or in wherever. And I think for us, it's important that we always maintain that London element to our parties and to our shows, because that's where we're from.
Listen, you know me, right? I'm at my age now, I'm a heritage DJ, right?
Yeah.
Like, you look how excited I am at just walking
in. I mean, like your face when you walk around the corner there. I thought there was found some records up there.
But like when you think of when we're parking up and I'm saying to you, that DJ there, that promoter there, like your dad had a club up there and Joe Labyrinth has one there, right? So I have heritage for me so important.
Yeah.
Especially with music. Look at the music I play when on Centreforce.
100%.
Like heritage is so important, and I think that's what to say an event like Centreforce are doing in East London with all that heritage of running when Centreforce was Pirate Radio in '89, when Centreforce had events over in Bow Flyover.
Yeah.
All of that stuff, I think it's essential for DJs like me, promoters like your dad. It's essential to have the core heritage at the heart still
of what it's about.
Made that go.
Yeah, 100%. And I think
made that happen.
And I think as well, like when you're surrounded by the people, like you say, like Kenny Ken, like your Roundel, like your Hype, people that we pretty much now see on a day-to-day basis, and we talk to Instagram, and we talk with them all the time. I think it's a real, and even when you're talking to them, you can still see the East London in them. You can still see. Do you know what I mean?
You can.
And I think that's one thing that the East End definitely does for me from the outside looking in, because being brought up around it, never actually being brought up in it, is the characters that it creates. I can imagine this place here was just full of laughs, full of characters, and I bet the buzz and the energy in here was just something to be
unbelievable. The buzz and the energy in this record shop was unbelievable, and like people know my story who have followed me, right? And I take great pride in this area in the 2 mile radius, because
100%.
this area isn't Fantasia, this area isn't Hacienda,
it's not.
This area isn't like your Balearic beat Ibethan scene, right? And I'm good with that.
Yeah.
I'm proud that our story is all of the names we've mentioned: Centreforce, Sunrise, Genesis, Runtings, this record shop, Shut Up and Dance, Ragga Twins, then further on to Cool FM and stuff like that. I love that. I love our story. I love other people's stories, but I love us lot's story, born out of this rough, rugged, raw area.
Mate, it's good to take a trip down memory lane with you, Dan.